This is Mentally Dope. Join us, Charmaine and Jasmine, two Black licensed therapists, as we build a bridge between mental health and Black culture. Come on, it's gonna be dope. Hello from wherever you're coming from. This is Mentally Dope. Everything at the intersection of mental health and Black culture. If you're with us today, you may have noticed a little bit of a change. We are missing our beloved Charmaine. She is off being busy and being great somewhere, but we wanted to make sure y'all still got the content that you need. So, of course, I am Jasmine, and this is our friend Isis Pettway, who is here joining us today. She's another therapist, another Black therapist who is also mentally dope. And y'all, we got a lot to talk about today. We have a lot.
We do. We absolutely do.
Isis, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and then we can dig into it?
Oh, sure. Well, hey y'all. Hey. So first, thanks Jasmine. Thanks Charmaine for allowing me to be here today. I love what you guys are doing with the podcast. And I just, I'm like, hey, I am down to be a guest at any point in time. Who am I? Grew up here, Central Tiger, graduated from UCA. I'm a mama. I love the beach. I love books. I need to stay out of bookstores. No, I don't.
Right. There are worse vices. There are worse
and
things.
yeah, and yes, from time to time, I put on my therapist hat and I work with Arkansas residents in the capacity that is within my scope of practice. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but that's just some general information about me. So,
yes. So, just another dope Black therapist in the Arkansas area.
Listen, happy to be in the number. Y'all bear with me. I'm going to switch. We zoomed out. So, y'all just stick with me. I want y'all to see this beautiful book. Because we're going to get into some things today.
Well, here we go. Technical.
Isn't it a beautiful book?
Yes, it is. The artwork is like gorgeous.
That's a quilt. And at some point, I'm going to buy that quilt from the person that did the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a whole quilt.
We'll say we need to know more about that. Yeah. Listen, we'll get into that for sure.
Yes. That's a whole quilt. Beautiful. So it stays in the background so y'all can see that artwork.
Definitely hook us up on that when we get there.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right, y'all, let's get into it because I don't know how long it's going to take, but we have some things to say. We are going to talk about School Daze. And so I don't know if y'all watched this back in the day. I don't know if you watched it on the rerun. But man, it is a Spike Lee joint. Okay, so it has all of the things you come to expect with the Spike Lee movie. A little bit of his early days, so it's different, but it has a lot to say as usual.
Yes, absolutely. It absolutely has a lot to say. Woo! Did it have a lot to say?
Okay, so I was gonna do a mental health moment. I don't even want to do it anymore. Let's go.
You don't want to do a mental health moment?
Look, I thought I wanted to, but now I really want to talk about everything that's going on. So
okay.
The overview is we are at an HBCU. Specifically, we're not just at any college. We're at an HBCU. And we are watching, it's kind of about everybody, but it's mostly about this kid, Half Pint, who is pledging to be a Gamite.
Yes.
And in that, we kind of get a lens and a view of everything almost at the intersection of like race and class and the different generations within Black people and just everything while this kid is trying to cross and become a Gamite.
Yes.
And that's the abbreviated version, y'all.
He wants to be a Gamma man.
Yeah. He wants to be a Gamma man.
Yes. So they are at Mission College, and I need to rewatch the interview, but I feel like Spike based it just on his years at a very predominant, at an HBCU in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he combined the college for the men and the college for the women within
Spelman Morehouse.
Yes, Spelman Morehouse to make up Mission. And he paid homage through the colors. So if you ever really watch the movie and you pay attention to the colors, I was like, okay, he's paying homage to his alma mater. And so you are absolutely right. It does focus in on Half Pint, ironically, who is the writer,
right? Who is Spike, right?
Spike is Half
Pint. So yeah. So we get here and Spike is really, really good about making sure that every single layer and nuance is included. without
Well,
even saying a word. Go ahead.
what did you think about just even the intro to the movie where he's showing from the Middle
This
Passage
is great.
to
Yep. The first thing we see before we even get to know any of our characters is the thing that me and Charmaine say the most. Everything goes back to slavery. We're starting from the beginning of our history in America. And I think he's also saying we need that context to understand what I'm about to show you. What is the invisible class system that we have as Black people that shows itself even more clearly at HBCUs?
Okay, so let me preface this first with saying, unfortunately, I did not get to attend an
Me neither.
HBCU. If I could do it all over again, I absolutely
Absolutely,
would.
in a heartbeat, I'd be there.
But there are some I observed. I did go visit the big three. I went to go visit Spelman, Yale, Clark, because I had my heart set on one of them, and I did see Morehouse. I had my heart set on one. Well, two. One's more further up the coast.
Hmm.
So you said the invisible class system that we have.
Yeah.
Oh
Just what do
gosh,
you think? I-
we don't talk about it enough.
Absolutely.
Because it is there. We do have a hierarchy, and it does come. I just read a book. It was called The Original Black Elite, and it focused on Daniel Murray, who was the father of Nathaniel Murray, who was one of the founders of A5A. But in this particular reading, the author goes into, and I think her name is like Elizabeth. I'll get the name and I'll give to Jasmine.
Mm-hmm.
But in this book, it talks about all the things post emancipation and how there was this elite class of Black Americans, that were in DC. And one of the things I love that she pointed out was how there was this constant need to separate themselves from the free Blacks. This goes back into, we can even go back into slip, but we'll get to that. But this goes back into the
Well, we
free
gotta go
Blacks,
anyway.
exactly, versus those who are coming out of emancipation.
Right.
They're almost like the first. We talk about the Great Migration, but there was a migration, even after like that Reconstruction period. And so, just really understanding how classism came into play. Like it's been there. It has been there. And
Yeah.
so we don't talk enough about how free Blacks really set up a lot and put themselves at the forefront because they did have access to education, had access, to money, and in that manner thought that they were better to lead
Mm-hmm.
with all of the things post emancipation. This is what needs to be done, and in a way talking down, to those who were enslaved and now are recently free, and that they, we are the ones to guide you, to lead you. And there was almost like this, yeah, that's cool, but we know this system a little bit, like we understand where we're coming from.
Yes. Yes.
We understand the dynamics, whereas y'all have never been enslaved. Y'all have never had to answer. So we know how a little bit of this works. Just include us. Hey, what are some of these resources that we can access? Because, again, when you think about HBCUs, you also have to consider the fact that these were founded like with the Freedmen's Bureau. A lot of the money did come
Look, now you talking now.
came from white philanthropists. These are facts. You can Google, you can look this up.
Right.
A lot of people are often surprised to find out about the foundings of HBCUs. But of course, we know that they were founded at a time when we couldn't get access to certain places. And so, hey, from the Rockefellers, General Howard with Howard University, you can Google, even here in Arkansas with UAPB, you Google the history. Most HBCUs, the first president was a Caucasian. That's just the historical factors. They had the money. Okay. And so, to be honest, most of these schools, this is where your middle class and your upper class of Black folks sent their children.
Automatically. Had to be middle class because it costs money. You got to be away from home, right?
Yep.
Like all of these things. If you were lower class, you're not going. You have to be at home to get things done. You don't have time to be somewhere else getting your education.
Exactly. And also, by going to these schools, you mixed and you mingled and you kept the upper echelon wheels rolling because the children are going to meet each other, they're going to marry, they're going to give birth. And so these things continue to roll, kind of like I'm watching the Gilded Age right now. And so you go to the Met, you go to the operas, and like one
Yep.
episode it said, our children meet and connect, and we keep the wheels of our particular class going through these measures. And so the boulets, the Jack and Jills, the debutante balls. We absolutely need to talk more about classism within our community because it is that, I don't want to say hidden, but it is absolutely that one marker that we tend to miss when we talk about moving forward and different things like that. We have to be honest about who feels like they should be in charge and who should be leading.
Whoo. Right.
Who
Feels they have the skills to do so, and who they feel do not, and maybe is undeserving. So listen,
say it.
It's nuanced. What about the hair texture, skin color situation, which is illustrated? Like, again, if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. But the gamma rays, which I don't know exactly what they are. Are they supposed to be their own sorority, or are they supposed to be the helper sorority to the fraternity that's only connected to the fraternity? Do you know what I mean?
They're only connected to the fraternity.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they're connected to the fraternity.
Mm-hmm. And they are intentionally portrayed to be, if you don't mind me saying, bougie. Most of them are light skinned. They have hair that is straighter. Let's really talk about what straight is, but straighter than other people's. It's not natural. We'll say that.
Correct.
And so there is this feeling with the gamma rays that they are better than everyone else. Mm-hmm. What do Black people say? Sedity, right? Uppity, something like that. And so there's this class thing going on. That because they look differently, they have the more coveted hair texture, that they have higher value. Mm-hmm. And they let everybody know around them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they do. Mm-hmm. But when you've been conditioned and told that this is a particular comfort level for people, we know pretty privilege exists. We know that there are, because I was talking to Amber not too long ago. She's a diversity specialist, and she was giving statistics around if your skin is darker, these are your chances of being hired. If you look a certain way, these are your chances. So there's actually evidence-based studies behind your look and pay. There are even studies.
We can prove what we have been knowing and feeling this whole time. Gotcha.
Exactly. There are studies to show that if you have lighter skin, you may make more money in the workplace.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, my livelihood is like, but to actually have this studied and put out there that, if you look this particular way, you have a little more leeway. And so with the first, it was genius to Spike. Again, you notice things differently. So in that particular scene with the song, it's a song that I will never ever forget. You don't forget the song. Mm-hmm. But I thought first it was genius that this took place in a hair salon.
Right. That's where we started. Good hair, bad hair, I think.
Good hair, bad hair. So let's start with the fact that this is in a hair salon. And then symbolically, when you think about what a hair salon means, what the beauty shop means to Black women and to the Black community.
Right. Exactly.
I was like,
the livelihood of the Black community was like, yep.
That I said, wait a minute. I didn't even really pay attention to the symbolism portion of that. And I was like, well, is it really this deep? And I was like, yeah, it's that deep. Because like you said, doing hair allowed women to have allowed Black women, they've always worked from domestic labor, but as far as like entrepreneurship and things like that, I could go do hair.
Always. Very first ones. Always.
I'd go do hair. Mm-hmm. So we're in a salon, which is, the basis. This is where our conversations, really our true first therapeutic offices. If
we're being real about it, this is the cultural therapist. Okay. This is the first.
Listen, the hairstylist, give them their flowers. Okay.
For real.
And so we're in a beauty shop, and we are singing a song that where there are, I mean, basically very
I
almost
mean,
mean girlish.
no,
It's
but like trigger warning, there's a lot of language that we don't use anymore and that
yes,
are offensive, but they're saying them to each other. We have all the jigaboos, we have all the wannabes, we have all the everything.
Hayella Heifer,
Yep.
um,
Mm-hmm.
all of the things,
All of it.
and and so like we're in. I thought that was another thing. They had to go into a space that is considered safe for Black women, and even in order to express and sing this song.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, they're in the beauty shop in there because that has been our place
Yeah.
to just let loose and let go.
And that's actually a good point. I don't know that anybody talks directly about the hair texture thing in this movie outside of that space. Nobody really says anything except that one moment when they're in the dorms. But again, that's a women's only space. Nowhere
E-
else are they talking about it.
exactly. And so, like you said, you're using the link. Well, they meet up in the hallway. And even there, like, why you can't just let me pass? I just want to pass.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes back to what you said. They're gamma rays, and
Mm-hmm.
so they feel special and they feel like they're
Elevate. Yeah.
above, they're elevated. So hey, you move out of my way. But that's even symbolic of society. I'm lighter, so that automatically I've been told I'm prettier,
Mm-hmm.
and my hair looks this way. So move out of my way.
Exactly. I deserve that.
I deserve that. It's almost symbolic of back in the day when a Black person would be on the sidewalk, and if a white person was coming, they would have to get off the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
almost like he was alluding to this in a way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's her name? What's the girl's name? I just had it.
Cool.
Rachel. So like
Oh.
Rachel and them were supposed to automatically get out of their way.
Mm-hmm. But the
Which
thing I love about it too, we were going to talk a lot about self-esteem in this, but the issue really isn't self-esteem. The women in this video, especially like the dark-skinned women, the natural hair women, they already know. They like, no, I know what I am. I know who I am. Like, y'all have it twisted. I'm okay who I am. Like, the issue isn't self-esteem. We got it here. Not a big part of it in that way. So it's interesting. What, you have a counter to that? Tell me.
no, I was gonna look up the lyric. I was gonna pull the lyrics because I'm just like,
Oh
I
yeah,
want
do
to.
that. Because it was very. Oh, and at one point, tell me, at one point they were holding up one group. Well, the light skin group is holding up the mammy figure, and I
Yes,
forget her name. Now
Aunt
that I just
Jemima.
didn't, was it her? Well, I was thinking of the woman who played her, but yes, um, they were holding up a picture of that. I couldn't tell who the light, no, that's right, the dark skin side was who they were holding up because it was moving too fast. I was like, who's that a picture of? I couldn't tell. Do you remember?
I think it was just a Caucasian. It seemed like a random Caucasian,
Was it? Okay, but because listen, let's keep it 100. Back in the day, I can't always tell who is who because we were so very fair.
and you wasn't gonna know.
Exactly, which is we haven't really talked about passing, but
That's another show.
right. Listen, there's so much, but oh my goodness, wow. In
No,
the Can we also talk about the diversity of the cast? Okay, we'll get that. You
the
do.
diversity of the cast, and shout out because half a different world was in that movie.
No, did they get every young person in Hollywood? They said, I need every Black person. This roll call. Y'all come be in this movie.
Listen, and then even anybody who's ever watched a Tyler Perry play, Cassie was in that movie. She was one of the ones that was talking to Dap when he was outside of Rachel's dorm room, and her and Paula J were the
Yes.
two ladies,
Yeah.
and I looked and I
Giving
said,
him hell. Yeah.
"That's the lady from the play."
Mm-hmm.
She been
Mm-hmm.
in. I said, "Oh, she been in these.
Been in these streets.
She
Yes.
been in these streets."
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. Like they put out an all call.
They did. And the diversity. We had the Afro Latinos. I mean, Julian. I love to see the diversity. It wasn't just one type of person. We got all of it because the
Oh,
diaspora is large. Go
oh, I
ahead.
forgot. I even forgot. I'm gonna go back to the class real quick. When we were talking about the class system, I forgot all about this part of the movie when
Yeah.
they went to KFC to eat. And Samuel L. Jackson and his crew
Right.
confronted. First of all, I wouldn't have left my chicken. I'm sorry. Like, I would have went and got some to-go
No,
boxes.
I was trying to understand. Pick up the plates and go. What are you talking about? I'm not leaving the chicken I paid for.
Thank you.
So there's this scene. First of all, before we even get to the scene, they have a big fight or a big blow up, and the guys line up before they about to go, and they said something like, "Are black people allowed to go get some
Do
fried chicken?"
revolutionaries.
Revolutionaries. There we go. Still eat fried chicken, and they all kind of start laughing, and they go to KFC and they get some food. And so when we get there, the college kids clash with the local working men, the people, because again, if you're in a college town, a lot of the people in a college town are there because they're in college, and that displaces the people who are living and working there sometimes. And there's a class system there of who's better, who's getting an education, who's not, who has more value, who doesn't. So go ahead.
You just made some very pertinent points, because sometimes we can gentrify our own neighborhoods.
Woo! We gonna
Sometimes we
let
sometimes
know.
we can gentrify our own neighborhoods. So that you I that was one of the things I should have wrote it down. But that is a perfect example of the classes class in play, the caste system,
Yes.
because they both valid points were made. But Samuel L. Jackson and his crew made a very valid point around, you guys come here, everybody, it's almost like y'all get this special treatment. Like,
Yep.
we've been here, we're born here, we're going,
We're
we're going to die here.
community, right? Like you would not have what you have without us because we make up the community.
Exactly. And then remember when they got in the car, you know, remember they had that conversation before that led to them going to get to the chicken around, how much, like, what is the stopping point? When is enough around protesting? And one guy was like, what's wrong with just wanting a 9 to 5 or just wanting a good life? And him saying, like, hey, I'm the first to go to college. All of my family has been nothing but sharecroppers.
Absolutely.
And this is
And
my
nobody's getting in the way of that. Like I'm not fully. You can protest all you want, but I'm not getting kicked out of school because of the legacy.
right there's, because I want to say nuance. There's even some that
Yeah.
could be unpacked.
Well, we're gonna stay on class
We're
because
gonna stay on class, but that was like that conversation itself was a great example of how to look at classism, because you, like you said, Samuel Jackson and his crew, there may have been some projection, but they were just like, hey, we didn't go to college, but hey, that doesn't make you better than us. Like,
right.
we're still participating in being citizens, working, all these different things. Y'all, and you can hear a little bit of bitter, like, y'all come down here, y'all do this. And the guys get in the car and you can see them kind of going through and thinking about the conversation. And one guy saying, hey, if somebody doesn't want to better themselves, but how do you define that? What is bettering themselves?
And that's where the class division is, I think, because one side has a specific way of doing that. Excuse me, I'm choked on my water.
Please don't choke, please.
But this leads into exactly what I was going to go to next, is thinking about the diversity of thought in our class system, because there's certain respectability politics part of it that say the only way to do that is to go pull yourself up from your bootstraps. You go to school, you get an education, which is the great equalizer. Everything is equal and fair after we do that, right? And so there's this almost like tunnel vision of like, this is the way. You behave well, you get an education, you'll get what's coming to you, right? You'll earn what's owed to you, perhaps. And then we go the other direction, which is more of that side of like, no, there's people are still struggling, right? We shouldn't have to do all this to get equal and fair treatment. This don't make no sense. Mm-hmm. And then we break it down. Let's not even go to Hotep and all these other things, right? So like, there's a big diversity of these things.
There is, and even when you think about, if you've seen the Different World episode where they address the same thing with South Africa and apartheid, Kim having to give up her Kim voluntarily giving up her scholarship, to say, hey, I can't participate in this. And so, like you said, yes, the diversity of thought. Because who's to say that for Samuel L. Jackson and his crew, just being able to go to work every day, to have, whatever jobs they were able to maintain and, be able to be, who's to say that for them, that's, that could be their pinnacle. And why shouldn't that be enough? Who gets to say like what's enough?
Exactly.
Because we've all heard you gotta play the game. But once you really get into things and you really start to understand the game and how the goalpost is moved, if your family or somebody got connections, nobody gets anywhere by themselves. Let's just go and put that out there. You don't get anywhere by your somebody knows
100%.
somebody, that part. Somebody can make a phone call. And to an extent, college is used as an upward mobility in other cultures. I'll just say that. Okay.
Hey, keep it 1,000 if you need to. We
Okay, I was gonna
understand here.
say. Okay, because for us, for safety purposes, and I get it, post-emancipation, Reconstruction, you are trying to figure out number one, what does freedom look like? We're living in a system. I've been conditioned to believe that in order for me to survive, in order for things to be good, I have to assimilate into white society. And the closer I am to a white society dynamic, the better. So my hair may need to be a little bit straighter.
Right.
I'm going to
Well,
pass.
had to. We didn't have an
Yeah,
option, at some point.
you're right. My hair has to be straighter. If I can pass, I'm going to pass because that's going to open doors and allow me more opportunities. Even if that means that I have to give up my family because I can't have them ruin this for me. If it gets out that I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
all white, that
Which, can I just speak to that for a second? My
yeah,
my only qualm with that is it's still a fallacy to think that if this is a merit-based system, and so if I do everything right, I'm still going to get what I need. Because if that was true, you wouldn't have to hide where you come from. Because the moment they find out you are not them, something changes. It doesn't matter what your accomplishments are, right? It goes all out the window once they figure out you just like us.
I personally, I have to wrestle with like what we call Black excellence. Well, what is that? How do we define that? And
And each
why
group has a
does
different answer.
that part? Because why does Black excellence have to be aligned with mostly anything that goes into whiteness to an extent?
Exactly. Proximity to whiteness, as close as we can get.
Yeah. So how do we define that outside of that? Like, you know, is Black excellence? Do we need another term? Do we need to throw it away and start over?
Yep.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that's a good point.
this goes back to Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois and they beef. So there's a long history. There's a long
And the reality is we've been beefing for a long time internally as a people because none of us can agree on, maybe we can agree on why, but we cannot agree on how we do something differently.
exactly, because even Black excellence is just a reframe of the talented tenth.
Listen, there's so much. And I think that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is just there was just so much conflict in our community. Like Spike put words to it, but this is happening constantly, even still, right? I don't know that too much has changed
I
either
mean,
way. like, what has changed? What's different
but
than this movie depicts?
okay, but you made great points because we both, college is in itself its own
Yes,
community. There's another word for it. I can't think of it. It's not coming to me.
microcosm, as they
Micro.
say.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. See, big words. I couldn't because, but see, this is why we have.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's micro. It's something.
I mean,
So
you the one
even
in school, so look.
right, I was like, is
We're
this
doing.
something micro? I can't think of it. But even he wrestled with so much there because, like you said, we wrestled with class system there. We wrestled with, who gets to define excellence, and even when Dap got called into the office with the president and the board of trustee guy,
Ooh, yeah.
that dynamic itself was representative of the Booker T. Du Bois conversation,
Yep.
and maybe even some more. So you've got the board of trustee guy he's not on the fence. He wants to do whatever it takes to please the folks
Right. The
that's
people with the
giving.
money. The
There
people
you
with the
go.
money.
With the
Okay.
money.
Hey, we got to figure out where this money is coming from. We need to do whatever they ask us to do.
Listen, what was your lens in that particular scene? Because that scene was very layered too.
I feel conflict. I feel internally conflicted. I like the great question I think that they asked from the beginning of who supports the black college, right? White colleges have the investors, they have the legacy, they also have the market on the people with the money. So it's easy. Funding is easy for them. We do not have the funding to do everything. Listen, we do more with less, but we still deserve more funding. And so part of that is I'm on both sides. I'm like, yeah, we gotta worry about the money because money talks. We're in a place, in a position in the world that we need money. But at the same time, we need to see our young people when they're telling us we don't stand for this, because at the end of the day, when you were in your youth, you were doing the same thing. Nothing has changed, right? That's how you got here. Why would you be at an HBCU if you weren't also at the counters at the protests doing the other stuff with your people, you know?
And he did. And you notice I'm reading body language as Dap is, telling him, like, I understand you marched with Dr. King, back in the 60s.
We say that was 20 years ago.
That okay, like that part right there, but he was very dismissive,
Yep.
which older generations can be very dismissive. Well, that was then, this is now, and this is what y'all need to be doing. What just happened?
Mm-hmm. And what did he say to that? He said, but black people are still struggling now. We still jacked up now. So what are we doing today?
What are we doing today? What are we doing today?
Mm-hmm. And I think that is also the division between the older class and the younger class too. In that I think because they survived so much in their day, in more of a way that was outward and physical, because it didn't go away. It just maybe changed and transmuted itself. They're like, we need to be grateful for where we are now. We made it. We don't have to go through literal harassment and terrorism. So we just need to not rock the boat and be where we are now.
Y'all should be grateful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Y'all should be. It's almost as if they're encouraging us to be the very things that they were trying to break out of. Y'all want us to be docile. No, that's not how any of this
But
works.
see, isn't that just because they wanted to be they wanted the luxury of being able to just exist. I don't want to have to fight anybody. I don't want to have to get up and have to fight for my existence and fight with somebody and tell somebody why I have a right to be here or not. I want to be that. And for them, it's their gift to us. But
True.
we don't see it that way because we didn't do that.
Your different day, like you said, different day, same struggle, but different presentation of it.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're just like, it's still not cute over here. We still
It's
need to do something. And they're like, this is great. This is better than it's ever been.
it's you're like that's what you see, but
Exactly.
it's wrapped in a different package, and
Yes.
the presentation is the same. It's just wrapped in a different package.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not necessarily all hunky-dory. Yeah, sure, after a while you were able to buy homes and you were able to do all these things. And if we did it, how come y'all can't do it? You do understand how these systems work, right? You do understand how after y'all elevated, or what was presented as y'all elevating, like, let's keep it 100. You do understand that they were just like, oh, this is too much progress. This is way too much. That's too much progress. We got to scale some of this back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We got to scale some of this back. So no, that those are, like you said, those are great points around where for them, no, you guys should be grateful. We did this so that you
Mm-hmm.
guys could have this,
Yep.
and we're
Straighten up and
fighting
fly right. You acting crazy? I need you want to be here? Act right.
that part.
But in essence, they're also doing the thing they're supposed to do. In college is the place for you to learn about the social causes that you want to be a part of, and you
Yes,
learn how to do that legitimately, whatever, civil disobedience, however you want to do it. College is exactly the place. So it frustrates me when people don't help young people foster that.
that portion, or even the narrative around, it's y'all's turn to take up the mantle and fight, but who taught us how to even pick the mantle up. We were taught to keep the, for us, we were taught to keep the peace,
Yeah. Keep your
to
head down.
keep
Just
your
go.
head, that part. And if we shook the table, we were asked, well, why y'all making trouble? Y'all go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is it Uchiwali or is it one mic? What you want? What we doing? Is it Uchiwali or is it one mic? What are we doing here?
Right.
What are we doing? Why are we here?
But this is why we can't agree. Because everybody has a different path forward. There's no perfect path in any way, but like everybody has an opinion on how it needs to go and how it does not need to go. And all we can do is fight about it rather than going forward. Picking any path and
That,
going forward.
but it goes back. It goes back to the infighting between Booker T and WEB, where Booker T was like, okay, hey, let's assimilate, let's do these schools, but we'll still, do things in this particular manner. And WEB Du Bois was like, nah, let's do this talented 10th. Let's get this going. And we've never, like you said, everybody want to be leading, but nobody is listening to the folks in the trenches.
Yep.
And that's one of them, and that's when it goes back to the class system. That was one of the main issues, because when you think of even when you think about now, and how for some people, unfortunately, they feel like, oh, my money will protect me. It's like, no, they'll come for you too. And the reason I say that is historically this has happened before.
Kanye told us, okay.
I'm
I
just
ain't
saying.
got to agree with everything he said, but I'm telling you, he told us before we got here.
I'm just saying, historically, this has happened before. This is what happened in Reconstruction. You had the election of the senators. You had black folks in the Senate for the first time. You had black folks in the Senate. Sumner and all of them. You had black towns were thriving. You had families who were coming up.
Right.
Literally from slavery into middle class.
That did everything they asked us to do, which is
Say it one more
leave us
time.
alone. Don't interact with our people. We said, okay, we'll go and get our own. And we have black communities. We did everything we were supposed to do. We did everything they told us we were supposed to do.
Everything they told us to do. And slowly, one by one, laws started being put into place. Reconstruction didn't just end. It was a very strategic taking away. And honestly, we've never recovered from that.
Correct.
We've never recovered from that. So like you said, you can do all the things, but if they're coming for you, they're coming for you.
Mm-hmm. But this also leads us to, okay, what in the heck does this have to do with mental health? And I'm going to tell you where I come from and my lens is, but you tell me if that differs for you. But I think part of it is each of these different classes have their own specific trauma.
Oh God, yeah.
Like the older generation, like I was talking about, their trauma is different from the younger generation. The light-skinned or passing people, their trauma is different from the dark-skinned and kinky hair textured people, right? Like all of it is nuanced. And I think that's where the clashes get, because we don't hear each other over our own trauma. Because there is trauma in the young people that are here now, even though things are as good as they've ever been. It's still not cute and sweet out here. It still isn't. There is trauma, even if people do not like to talk about it, in passing and being light-skinned, because it's still a box, right? It's still a box. You have to be this, and you have to divorce your heritage and your legacy to have success. The issue that people don't talk about with passing is that you have to leave your family and never look back because you don't want anyone to know. That in itself is the type of trauma. No one should have to do that. There's that. There's also the trauma of the people giving you the most grief about the way you look, or the people in your family or in your community, which is what we see here in this movie. Okay?
Oh,
Layers. And if we go on the dark skin side, or even just brown skin, you ain't got to be dark to get it. But the brown skin side of just like the hate you also get is in your own community. The people calling you the names are the people in your neighborhood and your family. Could be your own mama. And then the world is very much against you. They don't want you to have success just because of what you look like and what you represent to them.
Man, I mean, even when you think about colorism worldwide, like the selling of bleaching creams and all of these different things that are done so that you're not darker skin,
Mm-hmm.
it's heartbreaking. And it's, again, it's a trauma. Like, I literally have to change the way I look in order to be accepted, in order to be able to have access
Yes.
to
But
certain avenues.
there's nuance there, because if you're changing the way you look, you're saying there's something wrong with who I am, how I came out my mama's womb, how the curl in my hair is, right? And
Mhm.
that message is toxic.
Absolutely, because I think you were asking earlier about hair and self esteem and all these things. I remember when I first started growing my locks, and my grandmother, when I started growing them, she was just like, "You gonna keep growing them twigs out your head?
Oh
How you gonna get
man,
a
it's a
job?"
whole nother conversation.
And I did, which leads into negative self-talk and some other irrational thoughts, because
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety, because it's just like, oh crap. But I also had to realize too, my grandmother came from a generation where
Yep.
it pretty much beat in you that you needed to straighten your hair in
Yes.
order to be accepted, in order
Mm-hmm.
to be okay. And honestly, I think there's some safety in that as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Being
you know,
presentable.
yes.
Absolutely. This respectability politics of if we're gonna wear a bonnet or not wear a bonnet in public, whatever. Right? It's this whole thing. There was a lot in how you
You,
looked.
oh God, like you said, I have to present a certain way, so that I get treated decently, as much as decent counts with
Right.
white folks.
As
And
best as possible.
exactly. And then even with black folks, I want to make sure that I present a certain way, especially when I go to church, or, because that was our hub. That's where you dressed up. That was everything, because that was the only place we were,
Yeah.
quote unquote free.
If anything was missing from this movie, it was a representation of church. I would say that.
I
But I
agree.
think there was probably a lot to do. We couldn't fit it, but that's
Because I still feel like that movie could have been maybe 2-3 hours long,
yeah.
from what he addressed. But, like, and again, even in the dynamics, like, you've got Jane and Julian, who are two lighter skinned individuals, and looked up, kind of the popular, in that particular arena. And then, like, even with Jane, the blue eyes, like,
Mm-hmm.
we could go all day around that. But even Rachel addressing Dap, like, why are
Yeah.
you really dating me? Is it because I'm one of the darkest skinned girls on the campus? What is your real reason for being interested in me?
Mm-hmm.
And,
That's
even,
fast. That was fascinating to me too, because it's usually on the other side, right? People are seeking out the light skinned girl with the long hair, and on the other side, she said, "But are you just with me because I'm dark skinned? Is that what we're doing here?" Great question.
and I was like, well, if he's presenting with a Pan African, like, this is his dynamic. And, like, she told him, she said, in dating me, does it show that you're down for the cause, and you got this dark skinned sister on your shoulders? And I was just like, okay, read him
You know
fulfilled.
what I want to say? Go off, please. Let him know.
She and went off. She did. I said,
Mm-hmm.
but these are the questions, to ask.
We have questions. Yeah.
But she also, but like you said, it also presented a dynamic of, you normally, it's not asked if you're dating me because I'm darker skinned. It's always asked, like, are you dating me because I'm lighter skinned? Am I a fetish? Do you really like me, or do you like what my look represents for you?
Absolutely. And I think they asked that question there, but when we got to Julian and Jane, she didn't ask that question. Even though the answer to that question was obvious. He didn't like
Exactly.
that girl. He didn't care about that girl. Not to put her in the situation you put her in, not even a little bit.
Child.
So,
Whew. And then, even like you said, when you looked at the gamma rays, now there were a couple of darker skinned gamma rays in there, but
mhm.
they
But
had
they
the
had to have
longer
the
hair.
other requirement, right? You
They
got to have
had.
the long hair or the straight hair, one or the other. We couldn't have none. It wasn't an option. We have to have some source of currency, right?
Hmm. So even there, I would love to ask. You had to have this other source of currency, and so, do you even get an opportunity to lean into your other features, or because your hair is what's getting you accepted, is that all that you lean into and develop like you're gorgeous in this way, but this is what I'm focused on, and different things like this to be accepted. So what does that even do to your self-esteem and the way that you see yourself and identify?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it can't not. I don't think there's a way that you cannot be impacted by it.
I mean, let's be real. We've all met that person who their hair was their everything. For most of us, our hair is absolutely tied to our
And
mental.
we're taught that too in our community.
Heck
Look, your hair is
yeah.
what you have. Okay.
Child, when I cut my hair, my father had a
Listen.
fit.
Listen, and we talking about grandmas. When I first cut when I got to college, because I feel like it's a very college thing. When you get to college, you're like, I'm a woman now, and I'm gonna cut I have agency. I can do whatever I want. And my grandma was like, oh my gosh, like she was really very upset and vexed by this. She couldn't understand because I went natural too, and she was like, oh no,
You
how
cut your
could
hair and
you?
you went natural.
Exactly.
Oh, you hit grandma with a double whammy.
Right. That's a whole. Listen, it's a whole nother hour. Okay.
Listen, we can go. Listen, I told you my grandma's reaction when I grew the blue. I said, "Twit, really, grandma? Okay."
Like, don't let me have gotten some locks. My God, we would have had the intervention.
Listen, but it's like you said in regards to the mental health portion of it. It can, to an extent, you may deal with anxiety and even depression around colorism, because again, I don't look a certain way, and so does this allow me access resources? And like we talked about earlier, now understanding that your income and different things can impact, and so but I often lean towards like just the anxiousness, because think about it, when someone gets ready to cut their hair or do some, or if my hair is not done, I'm visibly elevated because I need to make sure that I present a certain way. So thank God for head wraps, wigs, and all the things, to
You hear
aid.
that? You hear that? Thank God for it. Okay. It
God.
ain't nothing to be worried about or ashamed about or anything. This is a tool for us.
Listen, every single day. But the way I would lean into it, as far as like how does this impact our mental health, is you're consistently having to, your system is consistently going. What I mean by that, like your nervous system, your thoughts, everything is consistently going, because you're trying to figure out how to exist in a system that was never meant and built for you.
Mm-hmm. And
And
even more, meant to exterminate you, right? We're trying to
exactly.
thrive in a place that doesn't want us to even be here. And so our system is already going to be like in overdrive.
So what do you do when I need to get this, but also I need to go get my hair done, or I need to have this money from my bundles because I need to be able to, present in this particular manner, and I don't have it. Okay, so now I got to figure out what to do with my hair. I don't, so, and then the questions could come: do I even really like my hair? Like, all these different things could spiral. All because you
Absolutely.
couldn't get your hair. Like, let's be real, we've all met that person, or even in our own lived
Or been that
experiences.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. When I couldn't, before I cut natural, when I had my perm, baby, if I couldn't go get my body wrap,
I
I
can't go
couldn't go
nowhere
get
today.
my body wrap.
I can't go out with y'all tonight. My hair ain't done.
My hair ain't done. I can't go nowhere.
I can't. We at the house. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Or I can only go if somebody help me do my hair. We can't. There's no in between. We're not gonna go outside looking crazy by the head.
That part. That part. So it's very much an impact on our mental health. And there's actually a page I started following. I think it's called Psycho Hair Therapy, where they are. I'll send it to you. Where they are. Their goal is to begin looking at mental health care for Black folks through an entry point that resonates with us. And, they're like, we have all of these European models and different things like that, Western in particular directed models. And what does it look like to look at something that's an entry point for us? So we know that hair is a big deal in our community. Yep. It impacts us in every happenstance. And so, I was thinking about that. I was like, it's very true. Because going back, I mean, what was the first thing like when Jane and Rachel confronted each other in that hallway? What's the first thing Jane did? She flipped her hair.
Yep.
She flipped her hair as to say, I'm better than you. you think about your playground days. And I've met women, who have been light skinned and have had longer hair, and they're like, they were terrified at times because,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
definitely a
they
safety, yeah, issue too.
what do you do if you think
Mm-hmm.
somebody's going to cut your hair or cut your face because they consider you prettier and getting all of the attention, and they're getting bullied and different things?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of trauma around colorism, a
So
lot of
much.
violence around colorism.
Yes, that's just within us, right? Like we can speak all day about what's happening outside of us, but just in the Black community, there's a ton. And I know we touched on this a little bit about just the colorism and the nuances, but bringing this into today's world and what we are doing today, because like I said, I don't know how much has changed after this. I don't know that we have gotten over or gotten through or really worked through any of these really deep seated issues in our community. But we can see on a regular basis, if we're looking at the pop culture headlines in our communities, because I would say in diverse communities, they aren't really talked about, is that we still have this tug of war. We still have this tug of war. We all know the Black men who do not date Black women, and that's its own thing. We just not too long ago left the Erica Mena stuff, and she called her fellow castmate crazy, crazy names,
Mm-hmm,
reminiscent of
mm-hmm,
the slave house. Okay,
mm-hmm,
and the dynamics are there, right?
mm-hmm,
She's a light skinned woman
mm-hmm,
who I had to do double checking that she's Puerto Rican and Dominican. And come on, diaspora. So what are you really doing
mm-hmm,
to our
mm-hmm.
darker skin? It's too much. It's too much here.
It's, I mean, even when you look at, like you said, even looking in pop culture and those headlines, like for instance, I'm like, date who you date, but you do not have to drag another person down in order to do that. Because if you have to drag me, that tells me that you're not settled in yourself and your choice. And what are you really reacting out of? Like,
Hmm.
what's the root here?
Yeah,
What
it's born
what's
out of trauma. It's born out of trauma. And if it is born out of trauma, I just don't know that it can be a preference. You have a trauma that you need to work through.
that
So,
part?
full story. Our good friend Terrell Owens, he had said not too recently that he doesn't date Black women exclusively. He doesn't date Black women, but when he described why, he said is because when he was young, everybody used to make fun of him, Black women especially, about what he looked like, about his skin color, those types of things. And he said he did try, and now he exclusively doesn't anymore. And I don't know about you, but this hits close to home to me because I have people in my family who feel this way and who have been through these traumas and say, no, I'm not doing it no more.
I can see that. But like, but like you said, what is it that you, like you said, what is it that you really need to work through? Like,
Right.
what's that valid? Was there a certain validation? Um, who is he? Like, okay, you're angry. You're angry about what happened in childhood. Yeah, children can be cruel. We all know this.
Absolutely.
And children can be very,
And
very.
they mirror the grown folks, right? So people aren't getting that, kids aren't getting that from nowhere. They see what the currency is, right? And how skin color impacts people. So
And
they're saying it.
I would even want to ask him, like, is this actually the full story? Like, was it just in child? Like, what was coming out of your family as well?
Right.
What was the
That's a good
message?
point.
Yeah, what was the messaging around your looks from your family?
Mm-hmm. Because
Because
we talk about it
yeah,
in so many words. We may not say it directly, but we talk about it.
let's because
That's
let's
the first place.
that okay. That's the first place. Because there are a lot of people who didn't end up together because the you didn't come from a particular family or you didn't look a certain way, and your bloodline was going to ruin my bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
We can't ruin that hair texture. You need to make sure you do. Okay, first of all, lighter, baby, they Negro. Light or dark, you Negro.
What do you
So
mean?
something kinky curly gonna come. Okay,
Either way. So stop
you
fighting it.
stop fighting it.
And we're gonna go back even more. What happens when we get a newborn baby? What happens when we get this fresh out the womb? What are we looking at to see what the color is going to be?
the ear.
Exactly. Look
The
at the ear.
first
Then you
thing.
gonna tell how dark they're gonna be. Why are we concerned about that?
Mhm.
Because it's a means for survival. Or it was, right? We needed a way to be able to predict that. But it hasn't left us.
It has not left us because even to this day, let me see that baby's ears.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that baby gonna be chocolate.
Yep.
Why does it's so ingrained and insteeped? Unpack really and truly, will we ever unpack colorism? I don't know in my lifetime if we'll ever see it because
Yeah.
colonialism, unfortunately, worldwide has. I mean,
Yeah. I'm
the cat.
pessimistic about it. Same.
Yeah, I'm very pessimistic. I don't think it
I think
will.
we can heal from it. I think that we can try as much as we can to prepare our children for it. Like 100%. I don't mean there's not healing that's available, but I do mean to say it's bigger than us. We can do
Very
all the
much.
work in the world, but the people who really need to help us with the work are the people with the power.
Listen, it's very much bigger than us. And so yes, you absolutely see it showing up in pop culture. You see it in politics.
Yep.
To be very real, very proud,
Come
very
on.
happy to see our VP. But let's be honest, we cannot play dumb that her aesthetic did not help her get into that position.
Hmm.
And
And the first black anything, of course, she was gonna be light skinned. Why wouldn't she? Couldn't be dark skinned?
exactly, we
Because
like for instance.
if you ask me, I want Stacy. But listen, the aesthetic is different. Okay.
Okay, we're in line because that's what I was just about to say. Is we absolutely love both, but let's be honest. Stacey's aesthetic is not there. That's a long fight to get into office.
Hmm.
To let me put it this way,
It's just
she
it's a long fight for her in a place with the more black people than anywhere else. It's a fight for her. She does not get a fair shot with her own people. What do you think is gonna happen when we actually get? Let's talk about Michelle. We ain't gonna go into it, but you all know enough to know.
baby, listen. But when those when the elections were taking place, yes, she was elected. She was in the legislature down in Georgia, but to get on a national stage, we cannot play dumb that electing her as governor of Georgia, we cannot play dumb that her aesthetic did not play a part in why she didn't get to the national stage.
Literally, the texture of her hair, the color of her skin.
That part, yeah, the presentation of her body.
Yes,
We
yes,
cannot play
we
we
are we
cannot
are
play
fat phobic in this country. So there's so many things that
that
go with
part.
that.
That part, and again, the dynamics are right there. So yes, we have our first woman VP, but we cannot play dumb to the fact that her aesthetic played a huge part in her being able to move in
And her
certain
success,
circles.
absolutely.
She has access that someone else may not have. Look, and like you said, look at how they treated First Lady Michelle. The magazine cover, was it an ape or something?
I mean,
Yeah,
they absolutely called her a monkey, a man, all of these things. That is just classic. And that dark skinned women get on a daily, weekly basis.
colorism front and center.
Yeah, right.
Color.
And that wasn't long ago.
Hmm.
In this movie, he talking about when you marched, it was 20 years ago. This movie, when did it come out? 88.
80. Yeah, I was. Yeah, it was late 80s.
Yeah, my gosh.
88. Yeah, it was
Nothing
88.
has we've not changed. We've not moved far from it.
Mm-mm. And like you said, even acknowledging within our own, like you said, within our own race around what's deserving and what's not. Yes, we love our first lady, but even what conversations were being had around, how does she even get him, or how does she even, because of how she looks.
Oh,
And
I didn't even think about that. Let's go. I mean, we're not going to, but the dynamic between a light skinned husband and a dark skinned wife. Woo. Okay.
because what got played up the most about her education, her being a mother,
Hmm.
those dynamics were always placed
Hmm.
first.
And how many people described her as beautiful?
I'll wait.
Like, no shade. I love Uncle Barry, but described as zaddy, and like people could easily find him attractive and sexy. She was not described that way. She, you can be well loved, but you also know when there's something people are not saying.
Her descriptors were always around her intelligence,
Yeah.
her
Her
her law
poise.
degree, her
Yes. So
poise.
that,
She's
but
she's classy,
yes.
but never beautiful.
Right. And like, if we live in a place like that, how can that not affect the way we see ourselves? Even if you have a solid foundation from the get go, but the world is constantly telling you the opposite, it's going to wear you down.
Mhm.
There's no option for it not to.
That part. And every day, with the way the news cycle started running, the way social media started taking off, like you said, we're beautiful. We'll say beautiful family. The Obamas are a beautiful family,
Hmm.
but to individually call Michelle Obama beautiful, First Lady Michelle Obama beautiful. Now that you brought that up, I don't remember, not even through our own magazines. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Hmm.
That makes me sad.
Right. And look, we can't end like this. We can't.
We can't end like
So
this. What you got,
on
Jasmine?
on a good note, we gotta end it on a good note. I will say my question. I'll give you my question that needs answers
Okay.
because I don't know if this is a gap in my knowledge, as y'all know. The way that I grew up, I did not get to see all the black movies and consume all the black culture. But is it common knowledge that the song, came from this movie? Because I had no idea.
Yes.
I had no idea. I was just like, I know this song, okay. And I was like, no, this was written exactly for this movie. Let me tell you something about soundtracks back in the day. We don't do it like we used to do, man.
Listen, you had to have soundtracks were a staple because going back and watching this, I knew Phyllis Hyman's voice, but I wasn't paying attention. And going back watching this, and I was like, he had Phyllis Hyman. I knew her, like you know her, but now I'm older and can appreciate her art and her artistry. But going back, and I'm just like, oh my God, Phyllis Hyman was in this movie looking the diva that she with the hat, and I always loved her crowds. Always. That's
Mm-hmm.
always.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would play her music. But yes, the butt was absolutely the School Daze was absolutely a birthplace. School Daze birthed a lot of things.
Yeah.
It birthed a lot
Yeah.
of things.
If you did not want to go to HBCU before, how can you not after this movie? I mean, it's
Listen,
filled with like conflicts and discussions and layers, but at the same time, it's really funny. It's actually really entertaining, and it looks like a lot of fun.
it
College was a wild time. I don't. It just really brought me back, and that I'm glad I'm here. The Lord did a lot for me.
listen. It really, when you go back, like you said, it really does take you back um to a time where it's just like, yo, we had there's a lot of freedom there. And then also I was just like, I probably went to the best place that was meant for me because I feel like I would have been distracted at some other
Yeah, I may
place.
not have made it. I
I
would have had a
don't know.
good old time though. Let me tell you, but I ain't
Listen, stories to
going to class
tell.
and making sure stuff got done. That probably wouldn't have happened.
Listen, I salute any and all folks who went to a HBCU in the 80s and 90s and graduated, because you got to think about the 90s, you had Freaknik. So I salute any and everybody who, because in the 70s, a lot of people were starting to come into PWIs, integration and all that.
Yeah.
But those who did HBCUs between the 80s and the 90s and all of the different, I salute y'all. Y'all got y'all some strong ones, y'all some real ones.
For real. And you really wanted it because
Listen,
ain't no way over here it
can
wouldn't
you
have got done.
imagine? Can you imagine being at FAMU at the height of all of the Miami bass
I
music and
I wish I'd pay almost any amount of money to go back just to get in that time machine and be there. It is literally like one of my biggest dreams in life to just if I go back and I get another degree, it will be associated with the HBCU, and I will make sure that I am on campus in some capacity. There ain't no way I'm not. So
I'm just saying. Same here. I've been looking at programs and I'm just like, nope. Let me see if HBCU got it because
right, let me start there because that's
let
where I
me
need to be.
let me start there. Okay, I'm gonna ask you.
Okay.
So, who would you choose as a client, and what would you work on?
Mm. This is a good question. I feel like I'd have a hard time working with Jane.
Okay.
Because I think I see myself in Jane a little bit. Very much I see the of just like, this is all the value that I have, the way that I look, and like struggling with all of that. I got feelings. I'm probably not going to do it. Um, but I do like my young men, and I think I might go with half pint. I got questions for half pint. I think we need to have a conversation. Yeah,
Okay.
you weren't expecting that, but I was like, you know what? I think we need to talk to half pint because I can see he's trying to find himself, and I see the attempt, but I think that we could go about it differently. There were things that he did. He was almost willing to do anything
Yes.
to be a Gamite. There were no limits for him, literally, not a single one.
Not a boundary.
And that's a little concerning to me. It's a little bit concerning. So we might be working on some identity stuff. Who are you? Who are you with the Gamites? Who were you before then? Is there something you think they give you? Also, why would you try to have sex with somebody who clearly doesn't want to have sex with you? Who are you trying to impress there? Why was that so important? Like we have things to talk about.
I like that. I like that. I like that with half pint.
What about you?
I want to work with, honestly, I want to work with No. I want to work with Jane.
Okay.
At first it was Julian, but then I was like, nah, I want to work with Jane.
I thought about Julian, but I don't think he'd come. I think he's not showing up because he don't think nothing wrong with him.
That's true. He'd be a no-show. He would absolutely be a no-show. I would want to work with Jane. And the reason I say that is because of she had no identity outside of him and outside of Gamma. The blue contact, like the blue contacts and all these different things. And so I would want to work with her around core beliefs. I would want to work with her definitely around like thought patterns, self-care. So same thing, identity work, because what made you agree even after
they just showed up in two different ways? Yeah,
exactly. Because what made you still agree even after half pint said we ain't got to do this? What made you still agree to go that route? Like what was it about this man or whatever it was you were seeking in this man
that he represented? Yes.
That you put yourself in an uncomfortable position and then he gaslit you afterward.
Oh my God. Can we oh my God, I literally
baby, he's had the flank. I said baby, this
I was stressed out.
I said that's gaslighting 101.
I was yelling at the screen. I said, ma'am, if you don't slap that man right now and get on out of there, there's no use arguing with this crazy man who planned to dump you before we even got there and put you away like used goods.
He basically trafficked you.
Yeah. You said okay.
You said, okay, I'm going to do it because I love him. So what in you said this is okay for me to do? For any man who loves you and cares for you is not going to put you in that position. So what to you said this is love? If I do this, he'll love me even more. So even unpacking with her patterns and understanding, like, how are you defining your family of origin? I want to work with her and her family of origin and identity. I was just going
to say that too. I wonder what family she comes from, because I'm sure this ain't the first time we've struggled in this area.
And the way that she wanted this acceptance from him, the validation of being, the queen of the Gammas, the attention. What's your family of origin? What's your attachment style? We're going to work on attachment style.
Yeah. What's mama look like?
Yeah.
Ooh, I got questions. Yeah. How was she treated?
That part. Yeah. How she treats you. What kind of attachment style did this form in you? Because something happened where you were willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable position to please a man who afterward pretty much, he dumped you and gaslit you to do it.
Right. Come on, where your friends at, y'all? Come on.
Okay,
that's 101. You don't travel nowhere, and I'm especially not going into a fraternity house on my own without my people, not by myself.
Listen, and that's another thing outside of the gamma rays. Do you have actual friendships?
Woo!
Or was Julian all that you had and knew? And why can't you make friends? So yeah, Jane got a lot of stuff that I would
You
want to
right.
unpack with
You
her.
right. And at this
Right.
point, we're gonna have to do group therapy with all the gamma rays, so we can get it together. Because there was so much. Oh,
There is so much. This is dope. I can talk about this stuff all day.
all day. And look, that's what I said. Isis is the wrong person to have here because halfway in, we just talking about black stuff. We ain't even talking about no mental health. I said, Lord, this is how we gonna do this. But listen, Isis will be back. There's so much more to talk about. We could pick one of these points and expand and keep going and keep going. But y'all, this was a good movie. Shout out to the cameos. I saw Angela Bassett. Did you see Angela Bassett in action? I was like, what?
Wait, who was she?
She was an extra. She wasn't credited. She was just in the very first scene where they were panning across the crowd. I was like, is that Angela? I've never seen you look like
Okay,
this, ma'am.
I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna have to go
Just
back
it's
and watch
just the
again.
very first part where they're panning, and I'm sure there's other people. I just happened to look up at that moment. So lovely, Jasmine Guy. How did Jasmine Guy even? How was she not a main character? She held up the background very well. But anyway, I named after her. It's a whole thing. I gotta acknowledge all of that.
Okay.
So y'all, it was
Okay.
good. It was good.
It really is. When you go back and you rewatch, it really is a great movie. And Spike, you
It's a
gotta give
lot of
Spike
fun.
his flowers. Spike did that.
You do.
And
It's a lot of fun.
shout out to Samuel L. Jackson, who has been the hardest working. If Spike's shooting a movie, Sam gonna
Listen,
be in it. But
in it
they go back to Morehouse. But yeah,
with bells on,
with
okay?
with bells on.
And we didn't even talk about like just the whole Greek system in general. But listen, y'all, we got to come back. We'll talk about
Yes.
it again.
Part two.
There's got to be a part two. We got to do a part two.
Okay,
And
part
let
two.
us know specifically what we need to talk about because there was so much. Like we talked about the clashes, but there was other dysfunction, right? These people in the movie are not perfect, but it was good. It was good.
It was. And if you went
Okay.
to an is it okay, Jasmine? If
Hmm?
if you went to an
Yeah. Yeah.
HBCU, what was like reflected in this movie that may have been your own experience? I'd be
Mm-hmm.
curious about that.
Yes. Or if anything wasn't, I'd be curious about that because to me it felt very authentic. I did go to a school. There was a lot of Greek life and all that thing. So I was just like, yeah, yeah, I see this. Every single part of this. This happened. This off a real experience. But anyway, y'all, we're going to get out of your hair and get out of here. We appreciate everything. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back in some capacity and keep talking about this. Okay, so
Yeah.
stay mentally dope, y'all. See you later.